Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Speed Tips by Bob and Chad. We had some technical difficulties last week. Chad was out of town the week before, so I think it's been a month since we've actually been on here. So we're going to cover things and talk about the Super Nationals and just basically races in general. Along with all your technical questions or whatever, and go from there. So, what's new and exciting at Weir's Machine?
Oh, it's been a fun few weeks. We had the Harris Clash there a few weeks ago, and then we went to North Carolina for an entire week 2 weeks ago, and did some factory support down there, and worked on our distribution down there in North Carolina. RE Suspension is our warehouse down there. They do a great job, so we were working on refining that part of the country, and got to go to a couple racetracks. Got to go to Millbridge and watch the go karts. That place is wild. I got to go to Anderson, South Carolina, where the Cars Tour race was. We went down there for practice day on Friday and handed out catalogs and checked out the Cars Tour, which was really cool. Just a different world from us, from what we do here. They're like a super late, but they're a truck arm, kind of built like a mini cup car used to be, and so they're kind of cool to see the different regional that like they run down there. Then we went to Bowman Gray on Saturday night, and that top five, I would say, short track atmospheres. The racing ain't the greatest, but the excitement and the tempers and the atmosphere is unbelievable. So that was a pretty good time. I got to hang out with Tim Brown, and then he won when we were there, so that was even cooler. So, and now we're here. We're busy. We're prepping for Super Nationals, the greatest 8 days in short track racing, I guess we can call it.
Yep.
We're excited. Looks like there's a lot of entries. We got a lot of new stuff that we're working on that we're going to debut next week. So we're excited to get there and get rolling and see everybody. A lot of the people, we only get to see once a year, right? So this is an
Sure.
awesome week, and I look forward to it every year, and I can't wait to get there.
Yeah, no doubt. And the weather forecast looks pretty good. It's supposed to be mid 80 degrees, low 80-degree weather. Small chances of rain, but 20%. Nowadays in Iowa, they just give you a 20% chance of rain because there's a pretty good chance it might rain again. I was sitting here at my computer Friday night doing some stuff, and all of a sudden I heard it was freaking raining. And I'm like, I didn't know it was supposed to even rain. It was just a short shower that kind of got the deck wet, and that was about the extent of it. So, but no, I was over to Boone the other night. They've reconditioned the racetrack, re-put some new wood on it, and got it worked in really good. I thought by feature time, the racetrack was very raceable. Um, they did a good job. I mean, it was a good show all the way around, and they didn't have as many cars as I thought they were going to. I thought they would probably had more cars. They actually had more mod lights than what they normally have, but no, it's quite a bit, and like Tim just said, he was told over 40 vendors this year. I know when I seen the map, I mean, out there towards in the pit area, it looks like they're definitely putting more vendors out there outside the cage where we're at. So that's looking good. It'd be great for the racers. I mean, it's just, well, it's such an awesome event, and there's so many people. I mean, well, they got 1,000 plus entries, but I mean, the traffic is phenomenal there. So, yeah, it's all excited. We're excited. We got the new trailer all done. They actually worked out of it today and built shocks out of it today, and we're working out the bugs that we didn't know about. So I'm looking forward to that. That should definitely be a much better work environment for the guys and a much better customer environment. There's more room so the customers can actually walk in there and and talk to somebody, where the other trailer you could barely turn around in. So that's exciting. So yeah, looking forward to it. Um, and you're going to set up or put your rig in there on Friday.
Yep, we'll get there Friday and get parked and get everything situated and get ready, and hopefully we have no issues. This is always a nervous time for me. We blew the toter up going there a couple years ago, so we're hoping that the plan goes smooth this week. So uh,
Good.
yeah, we're excited. We got a lot of cool stuff that we've been working on, and new apparel and that kind of stuff, and we're just excited. Excited that your open house is Wednesday, right? So we're
Yeah.
excited.
Open house is Wednesday, 9 to noon. And we'll have vendors there, a lot of prizes there, good food. So come hungry, so that you make sure you get to eat. We'll have the new stock car on display. We'll have a brand new sport mod on display, a 2026 sport mod that's we're actually building for a customer that's planning on racing it the following week at Marshalltown after the Super Nationals. So that's exciting. We're going to have a sport mod on display at the Super Nationals like we have had in the past. Last year we didn't have a car there, but this year we're going to have a car there. So that way we can display all of our manufacturer's products and the race car itself, and so it's pretty exciting. Looking forward to it. I mean, like you said, sometimes by Thursday, maybe I might not be as enthused as I was coming Saturday, but or the Saturday before, but it's just the one year that it was super hot, like 98 degrees every day. That was a little much. That was a little tough. But the last couple of years, God, the weather's been fantastic. So so we're looking forward to seeing everybody and people that uh, come in here and listen to us on Bob and Chad. Make sure you guys all come up and talk to us and tell us hi and tell us what we're doing that you'd like to see us do more of or whatever. We got all the dates for the schools are set for 2026. Basically be the same weekends as before, so I don't know the actual dates, but the weekends would be the same. So we're trying to be ahead of things here.
Are we going to Pennsylvania?
Yeah, probably. I mean, other than that drive or the fly, the actual school, I really enjoy the school. I mean, the people are awesome out there. We get a good crowd, and Joel does such a great job, and his facility is just second to none. And so, probably we don't have it actually on the schedule yet, but more than likely that's going to be the case.
How about the Harris Clash? What's your thoughts on having it at Boone? How did it turn out? Were you happy? Or
Tell you what, yeah, I forgot about that. We haven't been on here since the Harris Clash. What an event! 231 cars, three classes. Stock cars was the largest class of 81. Uh, what an event! I mean, I thought Boone Speedway and IMCA did an awesome job. Um, boy, I just can't. It was just awesome. I mean, the racetrack was good. The races were good. There's some guys. The features there was, some guys that got out front right away, but there still was some other guys doing a lot of passing. And the sport mod race wasn't really determined to the last lap, and so it was a pretty good show. Rage Chassis won the Chassis Manufacturers Award with Ethan Broxma winning the race, and it was exciting because Ethan's kind of always that Boone's just kind of always been just not favored for him, and so it was nice to see him win. That was exciting, and so Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, well, I'm hoping we get to go back. We haven't talked about it because, of course, as soon as that was over, everything was pretty much wide open into Super Nationals mode, and so I hopefully we get to go back. Question is going to be whether we try to go back to our June date, which is what my favorite would be. Um, but so yeah, no, I was excited. What do you think?
I thought it was pretty good. I mean, went a little late adding the third class, but that's to be expected when you get that big of a turnout. But overall, I thought it was a great night. I think the venue fits. I would like to go June too. I think it would be cool if we could dodge the rain bullets to have it a little bit
Yes.
farther away from the Super Nationals, have it earlier in the year, but just have to see how that goes.
Yeah, that's kind of my favorite thing too. I'd like to be further away from the Super Nationals and just I like the idea of June, other than the fact that it rains. All right, Tim said he was told over 40 vendors. Wish we were one of them. Jeffrey, Chad, where is the best place on the right rear axle bird cage placement?
Well, I like to be as close to the contact patch as you can. So the closer you can move the cage out, the more effective I feel the suspension is. But you also have to look at how the car is built. So if the four link plates don't allow you to go farther out and you mess up your bar toe, so if you don't have enough spacing in the plates to move your spacers, if you're gonna try and slide the cage outboard, you really need to focus on the bar toe. If the bar toe is messed up on the right rear, the car is going to be ill handling because the bar toe, as you accelerate, that drive angle is where the car wants to go. That's where it's trying to push the device that direction. So it's critical to have the bar toe right. So if you can slide the cage out, redo your spacers, and keep your bar toe in line like it should be, I would go farther out, closer to the contact patch. This also is kind of like we talk all the time about a load stick and your number, and you can't go by this guy's number and that guy's number. Kind of the same thing. The distance from the contact patch to the spring location is essential to rate, right? So if let's just take a number for instance, if you're 10 inches away and you have a 250-pound spring and your buddy's 12 inches away with a 250-pound spring, that's not exactly the same load. So you can't really compare numbers. So the other thing also, if you're going to move it outboard, you're going to mess with the spring angle. So there's a lot of variables in moving it out. The car kind of has to be built for it. So if your chassis builder doesn't have adjustment to be able to keep the spring angle as you move it outboard, you're going to want to stand it back up, because if it gets real laid down, that's going to make that softer and change the roll rate also. So there's a lot of variables on that right rear cage, but very important location, and making sure that if you just slide it out, because somebody said, oh, you got to slide it out farther. Well, you got to look at all the other variables there to make sure you don't miss something really important like bar toe.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors in there. You just can't just slide it out and say, "Well, this is good." I mean, you got to put spring angle, bar toe, all that stuff. But I mean, the car's got to be built for that direction. Um, Taylor, hey guys, have a Wasota Midwest modified. Wanted to get your thoughts on losing the aggressive or snap on the left rear. Is mostly a spring fatigue issue, or could be other factors influencing this as well. Um, I mean, I definitely think the spring, anytime you run those real soft left rear springs, I don't care what the manufacturer might say, you're using a spring in a place that needs a lot stiffer spring to hold the weight, and so you're actually making the spring do other things, and it's going to stress that spring out quite a bit. Um, what's your thoughts on that, Chad?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. If you're talking about like the aggressiveness snap, like if you're really loose because you have too much left rear load and you go into the corner and it's got way too much left rear load and it just kind of pivots on that left rear. I don't know if that's kind of what you're talking about. If it's just way too much wedge number or way too much left rear load or kind of pivoting on that left rear, um, or if you're talking about popping up too quick because the spring is really compressed, or there's a couple different variables there. But when a spring fatigues, it never loses rate; it gains rate. So and it's going to shorten and it's going to gain coil bind. So as a spring fades, it's going to have more of a coil bind rate, but less of a rebound rate. It's going to fatigue on the rebound side. So I'm not 100% sure where you're going with that, or if you're just talking about snapping loose off, or maybe elaborate a little bit more so we can dig a little deeper into that.
Yeah, I think yeah, I would say, Taylor, give us a little bit more information what you're talking about. Jaden, wondering what could do to help with drive out of the corner on a Midwest Modified when the track is slick on exit in one corner and hammered down with tons of grip on the other corner. That's a difficult situation. Um, Once again, it's very important to be aggressive on the corner that comes before the checkered flag because that's where you're going to want to be the best. If that's the aggressive corner with tons of grip, um, you know, I'd probably make my car be real wide in the other corner that's pretty slick, and definitely keep the car underneath me and work off that. If the corner is the slick corner coming for, you got to just kind of almost adjust for the slicker corner because you want to definitely have the grip coming off the corner when there is no grip on the racetrack. So you kind of got to, when there's that much of a difference in the corners, you almost got to pick the checkered flag corner and work hard on that one. Got this trusty fly here that I don't think he's going to make it through the night.
They know their days are numbered. It got cold
God
this morning, so
dang.
yeah. Yeah, that's a tough situation. I don't know if one end of the track is shaded early on or keeps the moisture in the track. Or here's Taylor with some more stuff.
Taylor has been losing feel in the right rear. It feels fairly lazy compared to earlier in the year when getting on the throttle on restarts and during corner. And the thing is, we have to understand too, the racetracks deteriorate. I don't care. They can work it up, they can wet it down, they can do everything they want to do, but setting over the winter with natural moisture on the thing, the racetracks are going to be a little bit better. In your situation, though, it's very possible that when you start losing the feel of the right rear, that tells me that there's almost too much left rear in the car. What's your thoughts, Chad?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I don't know how soft that spring is, but I would say that if it's under 100-pound spring and you have more than 5 races on it, I got one of them flies too. That spring is junk. That's the downside of taking a super soft left rear, winding it up super tight, trying to do what we're trying to do on the left rear. There's not enough material there to sustain, right? So that's the most fatigued spring on the car and the earliest to be junk. So it depends on the manufacturer. I would say a little bit. I don't know if Bob, if you would agree, if you use one of the top tier manufacturers, you probably get 10 nights, but some of them are.
Ten's going to be pushing it. You almost got to look at that left rear spring like you look at a tire.
Yeah.
It's you're going to get a little life out of it, but not a whole lot. And It's just, and the expense of a spring, I mean, it isn't as bad as a tire, but it's not like the old days where you stick it in there and race 25 nights on it and expect it to be as good.
Oh, he said it's a 150. So
150.
how many
Well,
nights?
I mean, that actually should be reasonably decent, but
If it feels lazy, there could be a bind too. I mean, it's late in the season. I don't know when the last time you had everything apart. You gotta put your hands on this stuff, especially later in the season. I've seen it too many times where you have light wheel contact. I just barely bumped a guy. Well, I mean, it doesn't take hardly anything to wreck stuff when you're going 70, 80, 90 miles an hour. If you just bump a guy, you're probably going to bend the rear end. There could be you got to maintenance these cars every week. You have to look at it. Every time you go to the racetrack, Bob's seen it a million times. I've seen it a million times. The guys that are winning, their stuff is absolutely beautiful, and it is perfectly maintained. Makes zero noise when they push it, zero noise when you push down on it, and it is dialed. And that's if you have something wrong later in the year and you can't figure it out, it might be a bind. I would take the springs and shocks off and move it all around and try and search for it.
yeah, and it can be, you can actually check your heim joints and they might feel okay, but under load, they might actually be binding just because of due to wear. So sometimes it's just, you hate to bite the bullet, but with all the specials coming up, man, I'd put all new rod ends in there, and yeah, man, it could easily, the way these specials pay and how good they pay back, you could easily cover your costs. Plus the fact of running better. Preston, wait a minute, we got the guy on the brake pads. How important is it to sand pads on weekly maintenance? If so, is there a correct way to do it? Well, by far, I highly recommend taking the glaze off weekly. And you can rub them on the concrete. And Chad sent me this new product that's probably going to be debuted at the Super Nationals.
Quiet, Bob. Yes, we are debuting a product at
That
Super.
will that you will that's going to definitely be a neat deal for doing that brake pad thing. And I'm not waving at you guys. I'm still batting that damn fly.
We both got one. I'm gonna Mr. Miyagi this thing right out of the sky.
Yeah. So, but anyway, it's definitely important to maintain those brake pads because what happens is especially your rear pads, you're running aggressive pads. They get galled over and glazed over because, of course, you notice every restart there's sparks coming out of pretty much every car, and so yeah, it's definitely important. Preston, hello. I've got an IMCA Sport Mod. It gets into the corner well, but it's loose in the center and off. What can I do to help the loose condition? Um, a lot of times, if it's loose in the center, that's a steer issue where the car might be steering a lot more. You might want to actually put a little bit of static lead in the car. Keep in mind, it's that magic number still needs to be in that. You got to check your dynamic lead because you'll have 2.5 inches of dynamic steer in that thing, and you might want to just take a little bit of that steer out of there. That would be my first go-to. Alex, what are the advantages or disadvantages of a heavy right rear spring on a B mod? Well, I think there is a certain amount of advantages. One of the things that people miss, and we talk about this a lot in the chassis schools, is they'll put a soft right rear spring in there to get more left rear drive off the corner. However, the problem with that is we take drive away from the right rear, and we need to actually drive both corners So that being said, I tend to like a little stiffer right rear spring. 300 pounds does definitely sound a little bit much. Um, I don't run anything over a 250. 225 is actually what we run. And some guys used to try to run a 200 and 175, but the problem is they just get lazy. You don't get the side bite. Your tire's compressing and you're getting body roll, but you're not actually loading the tire. Taylor says spring has about 20 to 25 nights on it. Well, that's that's stretching it, even though it's a 150. Also wanted to get your thoughts on spacing out the right front. See a lot of guys spacing the right front out a lot this year. Well, what that does, of course, that makes your actual wheel rate softer. So and it also makes the car actually a little bit more stable because you got just a little bit wider front end. Um, I like doing that. I think it gives you a little more control, and with the amount of load that we're putting on those right front tires, I think having that out there a little further definitely makes it steer a little better. What's your thoughts, Chad?
Yeah, I think it's going to make the car too tight. So it really depends on the situation, in my opinion. When you talk about you're moving it out, so you're going to soften the rate, but you're also basically moving the right rear in a lot. So when you talk about that initial transition into the corner, when them right side tires aren't lined up, and that car goes to steer in the corner, and the farther that right rear is inboard from the right front, the more you gotta bend that car getting in the corner, and that's kind of where I shy away from that a little bit, or I always be careful to watch that if it makes it too tight on entry, because moving it an inch on the wheel rate's going to be pretty minimal on spring change wise, but that inch of difference on that tread width is, in my opinion, pretty drastic when your car is fairly balanced. I know a lot of the late model guys do it just to get the stability. So they can, when the pace slows down, they're tighter anyway. So they do something a little bit to free it up a little bit because they know that's going to make it, the rate's going to let it go there when the pace slows and it's farther out. So you get the stability to steer in the slick. But it is going to make it a little bit tighter on that initial turn in the corner. So it's kind of a thing that driver preference, I would say.
Yeah.
It depends on how you drive into the corner.
Yeah, the guy that complains about being a little too free getting into the corner, he's gonna like this. The guy that the car's a little tight all the time, he's not gonna like it at all. And that's a very good point. I forgot all about that, mentioning that. That's a good point, Chad. But 20 to 25 nights, you need to replace that spring. 150, I mean, I'd probably replace it at 15 nights. If it was a 125 or a 100, well, 125 definitely probably 10 nights. A 100, 8 nights is probably pushing it. But the 150, that's a little better combination as far as load versus compression. So it's going to live a little bit longer.
That's
So
the
where
heart
do
of
you go after the Super Nationals, Chad? What races is the factory support going to next?
I don't know. I haven't thought that far out. I know the Jamboree. The Jamboree will be, I don't know, whatever week in September. I think that's. I'm not sure if we're going to the Wasota 100 right after Boone or not. We've had a conversation about it, so we're kind of up in the air for the 2 weeks in between. I know the 1 week is my brother's celebration of life, so I'm out for that. But the boys are talking about going to a couple different ones, so we'll see where we end up. We know the Jamboree for sure, and past that, we're uncertain of where we're going to. So this is such a big event. It takes,
Oh
I mean,
boy.
I ain't got to tell you, it takes the life out of your whole team. When you go for 8 days and we're splitting up the shift and this guy and that guy, and he's there 3 days, he's there 4 days, and I mean, it's a big deal, right? So generally, the next week nobody wants to go anywhere. So that's the hard part. Is it's such a massive event. It takes the life out of us for a while.
Yeah, I remember the days where you'd get home and basically be out there on Sunday washing the trailer and cleaning the trailer and reloading it because on Tuesday you'd be headed north, and that was just too much.
I did that one year. Boone, right to Huron for the Wissota 100, and then right to the Jamboree at Deer Creek, and that was tough.
Yeah, it's a lot of racing. You get to see a lot of people, but boy, physically, it's a struggle. Matt wants to know what's a good spring rate for the rear of a stock car. Well, it kind of depends on where the springs, how the springs are actually mounted. But on the average, we've got quite a few guys that are running that 150 left rear. Some guys are running a 125. 125, I think, is too soft for a 2,900 pound car. Um, 150 seems to be a pretty common left rear number. Um, 225 to 250. 250 is probably more common on the right rear than the 225. Kind of depends on where you're racing. The 225, once again, when you go softer on the right rear, you get movement, but you actually take a load off the tire, not loading the tire, because when the spring goes to compress it, it's just compressing. It's not pushing down on the tire. So you got to be a little careful. But a 150 and a 250 would be a good place to start and see what comfort level you have with that. Yeah, we will. The trailer won't go anywhere after Boone. Bobby and I will both probably go to Marshalltown, the big race over there. And then after Marshalltown, I might be tuned into IMCA TV. That's when you get to that type of the year where it's 85 degrees during the day and 40 degrees at night. What they said on the news the other night, they called it football weather.
Deer hunting weather.
Yeah, no doubt. Matt says he has a 200 in the right rear and can't feel the right rear most nights. Yeah, I can't believe you would. Will going to a 225 or 250 help that feel? Definitely will, because what's happening is, like, like I just said, you're compressing that spring, but it's not actually putting load through the tire. You're getting body roll, you're getting shock travel, you're getting all the elements that tell you, well, that should be pretty good. However, you're just not getting the load on the actual tire itself. And if you can't feel the right rear, that's definitely what's happening. So I mean, you might want to just go to a 225 and take small steps, but like I said, I know a lot of guys that are running a 250.
Yeah, maintenance, maintenance, maintenance. If you're coming to Super Nationals and you need something worked on, modifieds, sliders, pull bars, got to get that stuff fresh and got to be on your A game for September. That's when the money's won, right? That's you got to have everything right for that most important week of the year.
Well, and keep in mind, I mean, they've got over 200 entries in the modifieds and 200 entries in the stock cars. I'm not sure on the sport mods, but I think it's pretty close to that. And there's only going to be 33 of them that start the show. So you've got to be ready to go when you get there. Qualifying is going to be a key. Racing prelude, I mean, is definitely a good idea to kind of get the more nights you can have on that racetrack. And the thing, a lot of people think that the local guys have an advantage. Well, the way they prep the racetrack and stuff is actually different than what they do on a local level plus the fact that they run 40 or 50 races per night. So, it's out of towners have just as much advantage as local guys. I mean, the only thing the local guys have is the advantage of going in that circle. So, no doubt about that. Local guys wise, Jeremy Mills has been killer and he's modified this year. He's been really strong. Um, Mike Smith in the first year in that sport mod has been pretty awesome all year long. He's done a great job. What a hell of a young driver. I mean, he definitely he's definitely going to be an all star. There's no doubt about it. Um, Wasota B mod can run a quick change at 2,600 pounds. A 9-inch rear gets a 50-pound weight reduction of 2550. Is there advantage to run the 9-inch? Does the quick change take horsepower to turn? Has anyone out there done actual chassis dyno? I have not, Rick. I'm not actually. I'm quite sure they've done dynos on that. I don't have. I can't say that I have any numbers or whatever. Statistically, I've been told that numerous times that a quick change will take, and in theory, it should take a little bit of horsepower. Um, the weight advantage, yeah, I don't. I would lean towards the quick change because once again, the racetrack's going to get dry at some point in time, and horsepower is not. You're probably going to have too much horsepower to begin with. So, what little it takes to run that quick change, but being able to fine tune that gear set is huge. Plus, the fact you're going to be more apt to change the gear on a quick change rather than those guys laying underneath their bellied up trying to get that 9-inch out of there. I would definitely go with the quick change. No doubt in my mind.
Yeah, especially if you run multiple racetracks, right? I mean, if you're a one track guy, one track every week, same gear, I mean, makes sense. But the quick change, is such an advantage if you're going to run more than one racetrack just for that ease of changing the gears.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Um, R. Kelly says, does right rear spring angle make much difference? Oh, by far. I mean, the more spring angle you put in it, the softer that spring is actually going to be. Um, I always ran my springs, if I could run them at about a 15-degree angle. Um, I like the fact that the teeter totter effect between the left rear and the right rear kind of seems like it loads the car and makes the car a little more stable to drive. Um, you know,
Hey
God
there.
forbid somebody must have walked by, and so that's kind of where I'm at with that. What's your thoughts, Chad?
Yeah, I mean the angle's huge. The chassis builders dial it in. They give you a rate. If you want to tip it inboard, it's kind of like the spring table. When you tip it inboard, it softens the rate, right? So if you tip it inboard, you can also put spring rate in it, so you get the motion of having that location on the chassis tipped in more, and it tips over more. So the spring location left or right also kind of works hand in hand with the spring table. So there's a lot of guys that'll run a lot of angle and run a stiffer spring. So you get the motion, but then you got the rate to push the tire in the racetrack. So definitely a balancing act. Again, you need to focus on what your chassis has to offer. If you have good adjustability in your mounts and you can play with that, there's definitely probably a little bit of tuning there, fine tuning, that you might find a feel and you're like, damn, I really like how that rolls, and then that stiff spring and it really rotates the middle. And I mean, there's guys doing it. There's no doubt that if you can use mechanical advantages and then introduce more rate into the assembly, it's definitely a good package.
Taylor says that he has found the same running a crate engine has had more success with gearing in a quick change versus the weight reduction in the 90s. Well, and especially with a crate motor, I mean, you know, they're minimal horsepower to begin with, so fine tuning that with gear makes a big difference. I mean, it's huge. Brad says he loves the show and he has a notepad of tips. Well, that's what you need for your notebook. The other thing you could possibly do, Brad, and we give you a great notebook to it, is attend to one of our chassis schools in the winter. It gets 2 days of nonstop information, plus the ability to ask questions during the show. And then, of course, you also have, like, say, if you want to ask Chad a specific question, you have that opportunity during breaks to, talk to the vendors or talk to the people that are there. So it's something you should definitely think about doing. Plus, in the wintertime, you're bored, so you just need to go somewhere and talk about your race car. Chad, when are you going to get into the rebuildable front ball joint game?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of people talk to me about it. We're working on changing lower control arms a little bit to change up how we build lower control arms, but I don't have any intentions of going against Chaz Howe. I think he builds the greatest ball joint that there is. There's a lot of people that have copied it, a lot of people that have taken it to China and made some knockoffs, and I don't see any reason for us to get involved because there's some good American-made products there, and I really don't see us getting into it.
Well, like you said, I mean, they definitely build good ball joints. They're consistent, they're strong. The thing that you can't always duplicate across the sea is the actual strength and the durability. Sometimes can suffer a little bit, and you know, bumping wheels can bend stuff. So I mean, it's definitely something to consider. Yeah, Super Nationals with the Prelude. We start on Saturday the 29th or the 30th, I mean, and go through the September 6th. Definitely a good time. If you've never been to that event, it's something Chad and I can explain it for hours, and it's just like going to the Daytona 500. I mean, until you've actually sat in the grandstand and see, I mean, you just can't imagine what they do. And I mean, the number of races that they run, and the farming sessions, and how tuned those guys are with the racetracks and stuff. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Never seen anything like it in my life, and I've been to a lot of racetracks.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the most electric atmospheres. You know, you start 30 cars, three wide, and you think there's no possible shot they make it through one and two without destroying each other. And you know, it's such an electric atmosphere, and it's so wild to watch it. And I just my only complaint, and I haven't really told Brett this, and maybe if he's watching, maybe he'll think about it. But I mean that the A mod feature needs 10 more laps, I think, and it just gets racy with 10 to go. And I think if that was a 50, it's 40 now, right?
Right.
If it was a 50 lapper, man, it would just. I feel like the last 10 laps would be absolute insanity, wild, two, three wide craziness. But I'm not going to tell Brett Root how to run the show because the show is run unbelievably well. It is amazing what they do in that amount of time, how organized, and I've told him that before, how everything's run so perfectly, and it's you don't even have to think about it. You just know that everything's going to roll and be on time, and they do such a great job. It's unbelievable. Just to watch the farming sessions is so cool, and It's
Well, and the thing is if you can't be there, I mean, I realize that sometimes you just can't go places, but IMCA TV does a hell of a job. They do an awesome job. In fact, we even in the new trailer we put a big screen TV in there so that the guys working on shocks can kind of keep track of their customers and watch what goes on. And it's once again, if you can't be there, definitely watch a couple nights or something on IMCA TV. Um, Taylor, thoughts on moving the right rear lower trailing arm up the whole bar on a modified? Thoughts on when you would make that change? I'm going to let you have that one, Chad.
well, that's it's really going to speed up that motion of the axle when you bring it closer. If you have angle in that bar, when you bring it to the center line, it's going to be really fast on its wheelbase change, and it's going to have a little bit more effect. So I I don't know of too many guys that actually do that. I would probably try it and see how you like it. Keeping the angle, I think, is important. You can't just take the back of the bar and go up. That's going to make the car extremely tight. So if you keep the angle in it, so you get the steer working the way it should, then I would think it would just be a quicker response. So I would say shorter racetrack probably is what I'd go to on that if I had to guess. But I've never actually really done that. So I've kept the same angle and gone all the way down and all the way up on the top to get the motion and slow the cage down and slow that spring rate of the suspension cage into the spring to build rate, to get it more of a two-link feel and then increase rate of the spring. So I would say opposite reaction. So you're going to get a quick spring stiffness, so it should drive tighter into the corner, and then a wheelbase change in the middle is probably going to be pretty quick. So you just have to try it.
What I found when we've actually done that, it gives the car a lot of traction, makes the car really work good on the bottom of the racetrack. Because it just helps the car traction up coming up off the corner really strong. Um, with a crate motor, you definitely don't want to do that when there's a lot of grip in the racetrack because it's gonna tighten everything up and give you more traction. Ty, many sport mods and stock cars getting caught with wheelbase out of whack. Driver's side been short as they are getting tons of left rear bar angle. How would you get one of your drivers back in spec within wheelbase but not kill their speed, balance, and forward drive? I assume you've seen a few of these scenarios over the last year and through your shop. Um, what we actually ended up basically, what we've tried to do, keep in mind they give you a tolerance. So you just got to be within that tolerance. But by having that much angle in that left rear, um, that's the risk you're going to have. And what we've done is try to lengthen the left rear out a little bit more, shorten the right rear because a lot of times the right rear will actually go a little long, and that's about the best scenario to keep the balance, is working on both sides to compensate for it. Sean, IMCA modified. It gets in and through the center really good. When picking up the throttle to exit, it just spins the tires and tails out to the wall. Any suggestions? More than likely, you're probably running too much rear steer in the car. Statically, I would take some rear steer out of the car. You're probably running at a static basis. You're probably running trail, or the right rear is back compared to the left rear. And then when you get the amount of steer in the car, it automatically tries to point the tail to the wall. And lengthening that left rear trailing arm will definitely help the car come off the corner straighter. And yeah, that would be my go-to. Um, Kyle's IMCA Stuttgart, 12 gallons of fuel, getting tight last 6 laps, burns 4 to 5 gallons in the feature. Would adding a small chunk of lead help, or do we just need to try something different since we do all of the passing early when the car is good? Um, once again, the pay window's open the last few laps, and granted, you got to go when you can, but keep in mind the racetrack's better at the beginning than at the end. Um, I personally, if that's kind of a common thing where the car starts getting tight the last 6 laps, usually fuel burn off will actually make the car freer. So I'm not sure what to tell you on that one. What's your thoughts, Chad?
I don't know. That is not what I thought. Also, I thought I was with you. But when I was crew chiefing back in the day, if I was running a feature that I burned 5 gallons and I had a 12-gallon cell, I would probably take 4 gallons out and put 40 pounds somewhere. Is probably what I would do. And you can manipulate the height of that lead, which will manipulate that car throughout the whole feature. So if you think about that balancing act when you're losing the fuel and you can keep the lead high, and you're losing the fuel lower in the car, it might be as simple as running less fuel and adding the lead. If you need 5 gallons of fuel to finish a feature, why carry 12?
Yeah.
That's the game I played. But
Yeah, and I would agree with that. That I mean, and even if it's getting tight the last 6 laps because of fuel burn off, that doesn't make a tremendous amount of sense to me, but it doesn't matter. It's like if that's what's actually happening, then I would definitely consider doing what you're saying and adding a small chunk of lead to compensate. Kind of like what Chad just said. So it makes sense to me. Um, Jesse wants to know, have you heard rumblings on a new engine modified package? Nope, I haven't. Or a new tire coming out for the A mod. Well, I know there was a tire test done a couple of weeks ago on a Sunday night at Boone Speedway. I don't know any of the details about the tire test, why they were doing a tire test. I've not talked to anybody, um, but I know that they did do some type of a tire test. So those questions you'd all have to kind of talk to Mr. Root about because I wouldn't have a clue. Joe, hello guys. Would mounting the panhard bar to the right side axle tube give the car more consistency? Not on a dirt car. Um, it would actually, I think it would make the car harder to drive and inconsistent because what's happening is you get so much body roll with the amount of hike that we get on our left rear trailing arm and everything. The panhard bar needs to be to the left so that it kind of works in conjunction with the pinion. Where if you mounted it to the right, it would work away from that. And so you wouldn't be increasing the angle as the car rolls over, you'd be decreasing the angle. I think it would make it difficult. It works well on a pavement car, but they don't get very little, very little body roll, pretty minimal. Dakota, USRA hobby stock, running into issues with front end bouncing through the corner. With limitations in suspension rules, what are the pros and cons of valving the right front shock to tie the front end down? Um, I think there would definitely be more pros than cons about that. Uh, Anything that you can do that's going to create stability and keep the car from bouncing is definitely going to make the car handle better. And the trend in all divisions seems to be, kind of making some type of a tie down on that right front. Now, how aggressive we would get that's different than running an A mod compared to a hobby stock because of course your tires are a little bit different and all that stuff. But yeah, I would definitely contemplate um, having somebody build me a set of front shocks that were tuned a little bit more for that reason. Tyler wants to know what's the advantage of left rear shock with coil that you guys offer? Um, well, other than I think we build really good shocks. Um, the left rear shock with the coilover, if you're talking about an AMOD being behind, that shock's definitely going to be a little different valving than if you put the shock in front. Um, if I was to put it in front with an AMOD, I wouldn't put the spring on it because the spring definitely has advantages the way the birdcage rotates and everything being behind the left rear axle. Uh, I don't know if I answered your question. You might need to, yeah, it's an AMOD behind. Yeah, the thing that you're going to find with putting the shock and spring together behind the housing is the car's going to be a little bit more unstable getting into the corner. And what happens when that happens, of course, you behind the housing definitely gives you more drive and traction off the corner. So if you're on a stop and go point and shoot type racetrack, that's kind of an advantage to do in that way. If you're on something that has any momentum whatsoever, the car's going to get free getting in and it's going to want to try to get out from underneath you, and the driver's not going to like it at all, no matter who it is. And we've tried numerous combinations of shocks and springs and whatever, and it just you lose corner entry stability with the shock behind the housing. Well, we got a couple minutes for a couple more questions. Once again, hope to see a lot of you guys at the IMCA Super Nationals, and looking forward to that event. Like I said, it's always a lot of fun. It does take a little out of you after a period of time, but it's part of the situation. And like I said, if you've never been there, it's definitely a bucket list deal for sure. Um, like I said, during the day you get to walk around and talk to all the vendors that are there, and by 2 o'clock they're racing, so you get to watch racing from 2 to 2. So you get 12 hours of racing plus you get to talk to the vendors. So it's just you just need to come. Chad usually has koozies.
Well, we got a surprise in that department
I
too.
figured there was probably going to be because I remember you talking about that earlier. I'm like, I'm
Uh,
wondering what he's going to do. This is going to be good.
yeah, we're looking for a banger year. We got a lot of new stuff and cool stuff, and boys have been working hard. It should be good. I'm excited to get there. Hopefully, we get everything there and have no issues and have a great week and good weather and like I said, I'm excited to see everybody. A lot of the people we only get to see once a year, so it that's what it is for me is the people. I love the customers. I love the people. I love hearing from them. I love seeing them do good, and I love helping them try to do better. And it's just this is all I've ever done and all I've ever known. So it's a big week, and it is what it is. I'm addicted to the shindig, so I can't wait.
There you go. We got two more questions we'll answer, and then we're going to call it an evening. We will not have a show until the 8th of September, the Monday after Super Nationals. Drake, is there an advantage to having a longer pull bar on a sport mod than a shorter one? Well, I think there's some advantage. I think stability. Anytime you have something a little bit longer, it changes angle less. So when the angles change less, the car can tend to be a little bit more stable and have more stability. Um, what we run on our sport mods is a 28-inch center bar. So I would never be under 24, and I probably wouldn't go over 30. Austin, 54% rear, too much in a stock car. Struggle with the back end kicking out, getting in the corner in the slick. Well, Austin, I know there's guys that are running more than that. Um, I've heard some guys are in that 56%. There's a lot of stock cars that are actually way overweight to get the percentages and everything that they want. So 54 is not too much at all. Like I said, I know there's some guys that are running 56, maybe even a little bit more.
Yeah, if it's kicking out, maybe the lead's too far back. If you
Yeah.
got all the way back on the rear bumper, that could be kind of a pendulum swing effect. Maybe you need to look at moving the lead forward.
I tend to like the weight, all my weights, even with the fuel cell or in front of the fuel cell. Um, Way in the back, if you're on a stop and go, point and shoot type of racetrack, it's probably okay. But anything that's got momentum, you're going to have that struggle, like Chad just said, with the tails going to want to try to get out. And the problem is when you have weight that far back, once it gets out, it just keeps going. So, all right, thanks, guys. Great show tonight. Lots of great questions, and we look forward to seeing you on the 8th. If we don't see you at the Super Nationals, we will talk at you September 8th. Thanks, Chad.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.